Wales, Australia. Let me just say that I've never usually had trouble with the women that I've been with. The women that I've been with, I've never usually had trouble with them personally. Most of my trouble with women has come from interferences, usually maternal. And this is one of the great problems of modern relationships, because there's so much dysfunction now. Relationships aren't holding. When you get to my age, 55, almost 56, and you're meeting these single mothers who have gotten through life, they've actually raised their children for the most part, and you're involved in a relationship with them. The formation, domestic formation, that these women have created over the decades is something that you're coming into that may not be something that you can culturalize to. Now, the hard part about this is the initial aspects of the relationship. When you meet somebody, there's usually going to be a chemistry and attraction, but that's not going to be able to hold a relationship. It'll hold it through the limerence stage. Limerence being, an easy way of putting limerence is the honeymoon phase, where your tolerances are at their highest and you can put up with almost anything. Wonder what's going on there. And you can put up with almost anything. So once the limerence stage passes, then you'll find yourself in the stage where it's what I call the initiation stage. I believe there's the honeymoon phase. You may not get through that phase, but then there's if you do get through that phase, the initiation stage. And initiation is where things start being evaluated, where cultures start being evaluated, where characteristics start being evaluated, where problems get looked at differently, issues start being raised. And this can be a very, very exciting phase, because if you've got the courage to come into a relationship authentically and with transparency, which most people say they are, but for the most part they don't. This is where all the unauthenticness and all the stuff that's not transparent begins to come out of the closet or from under the carpet. And this is where you will start to see the cultures either integrating, your culture and her culture integrating, or clashing. Now, the integrations almost, but not the same as the clashing, because whilst integration causes a relative amount of uncomfortableness, it also comes with reward, in the sense that, okay, things are okay. But when it comes to the clashing in a relationship, this is where love is tested, and I don't think that's the right way of putting it, where personalities and characters are tested, because everything comes down to resolve. Everything comes down to how well we can face things and resolve them. And if we're not prepared to resolve, then the relationship's not going to make it. Now, the problem with this is, if it's a two-way relationship, usually things will be resolvable, because if they've got a love interest investment and they're enjoying that, then they'll make the effort to try and find a resolve. But there's one crucial part when you're dating a single mother that's not going to allow resolve, that has no resolve. And that is when the maternal aspects of her life relative to her children come into play. Now, what you've got to understand is, as soon as the maternal conflicts start, you are immediately done away with. You will be put on, if need be, the crucifix. You will be crucified. Now, this is a very complicated part of being with a single mother, because whilst she might love you, if the children or the child start, initially they'll try and make it, but these children know how to wear their parents down. They've been doing it long before you come along, and they know exactly how to strike and when to strike and how to make things fall apart. So things are going fine, your relationship's going along well, everything's good, you've really got something good going on. And then word comes in that one of the children are starting to play up, and the play up is conceived by, the playing up, the bad attitude, the misbehavior, is being conceived by the relationship that the mother or the father, I talk about mothers, that the mother is in, because the mother's in a relationship with you. Now, what I've found is her way in which she'll try and deal with this comes down to the level of interest that she has in you. If she has a high level of interest in you and you have a high value for her, she will have a different way in which she'll confront the issue. Now, I notice this all usually happens at first with a high level of resolve or shutdown. See, a mother has two powers in which she can use with the children. One is a wave of the arm, authoritative shutdown and behave, or the other is a weak form of trying to make the child feel better. And you have to take very careful notice which way in which she's dealing with these children. Now, these children can range from ages from whatever right up to 40 or 30 or 40. I've seen it all. I've been with women that have had young children. One young kid had his mother, 10-year-old, pinned up against the wall by the throat. I've had another 23-year-old say to his mother, "You're neglecting me because of him." These are the sort of reactions and responses. These are the sort of negative assaults against your relationship with the single mother that will come at you. And it won't stop. It'll just keep coming and coming. And you're at the mercy of the mother, because whether you get involved or not is irrelevant, because you are involved, because the child's got a problem with you. You're the problem. You're the issue. And the mother's got to try and work out how she can make this lack of resolve, enmity, I call it emotional enmity, when you're not of the DNA of the child. Emotional enmity. She's got to work out how she's going to stop this emotional enmity. And she's got to try and do this against her instinctual maternal ways. Now, maternal ways always protect the child. And you'll hear the picture of a bear with the cubs. If you see a cub in the forest but you can't see the mother, stay away from the cub. Just get away as quickly as you can. Because if that mother senses any threat whatsoever towards her cubs, you're going down. You're going to be mauled, probably killed, even if you've done nothing wrong. Now, can you hear what I just said? If you're in the forest and there's a cub in sight, you're going to be mauled by that mother if she senses there's something wrong, even if you've done nothing wrong. So when you go into a relationship with a single mother, those instincts are still there. You're up against those instincts in the human form. So if one of those or all of those children decide for no reason except that you're not of their DNA, which is predictable, that you're not welcome, then underneath that, no matter how hard this mother tries, those instincts are waiting to pounce on you. There's no way that you can escape those normal, natural, maternal instincts. It's just a matter of how long she can hang on for, right? Trying to bring these children or young adults into order before she breaks. Now, I can remember my mother and the men that she had. My sister and I, we put on some performances just because these men weren't of the DNA of us. They never did anything to us. They never did anything wrong to us. They just wanted to love our mother in the best way that they could. And there's just a natural opposition to that. But somehow or other, my mother had the inclination towards her partner more than she did us. Now, she never neglected us. She never did anything cruel to us, but she sure made it clear that we have no right to interfere in her relationship. And that caused us to develop a respect for these men, even though underneath that respect was still the conflict that you have with inside yourself, because this man that your mother's with is just basically a stranger. To you they're a stranger, but to the mother they're more than that. You got to remember, you're not in the relationship, the mother is. And I find it interesting, and I have to say this, that my mother protected her relationships against us. But unfortunately for the majority, this isn't always the case. For the most part, you will be executed emotionally or relationship-wise executed, because usually the parent will give in to the child. Like some of these children could put on behavioural acts that make a Broadway spectacle look boring. I've seen some tremendous tantrums and fits and fretting and just relentless hounding and troublemaking and backbiting and pulling down, and to the point where the mother's trying to hang on, but she's like a person that's slipped off the edge of a cliff but just has one hand hanging on to a ledge and it's running out of strength. And the child, you're reaching down to grab the person's hand to try and bring them up from off the edge of the cliff, but the child's stomping on the fingers, wanting that person to fall. That's what's happening in these relationships. It's not that the mother wants to fall, at least not initially, but in the end, she just lets go and she falls. So you're at the mercy of a lot of factors. And it doesn't matter how hard you try, I keep saying this, it doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter what you've done or what you haven't done. Once it starts, you're at the mercy of how long the mother can tolerate the behavior for. That's what you're at the mercy of. And once she's let go of that ledge and she's falling, you're gone. And the interesting part of this, and I want to bring this up, just in the last one that I had, the son was relentlessly and brutally so immature, it was terrible. He decided that he didn't like me regardless. It didn't matter what. You know, he was a cunning little young man, but in the sense that he'd sit and talk to you, but underneath it all, he hated you. Something just wasn't right. He didn't want me around. And he was the golden child. I mean, this mother was spellbound by this boy. She built his ego up bigger than King Kong. He had so many blindsided parts to himself that he didn't want to hear anything that didn't suit. He just blocked his ears and closed his eyes. And I was never going to be able to win against this because they were waiting like vultures in the sky for me to do something wrong. And they had a bit of difficulty with me because I'm athletic and I'm sober. They despised that because they were far from that. And the vibration that I took to the place, I think it made them uncomfortable right from the start because I was, probably as close as I could be to the best version of myself. But I was never going to make it because the mother had slipped into a covert emotional incest relationship with this child. And you mix, hello, how are you? What's VASF Technique? I'm not sure what that means. I'm sorry, but if you mix a maternal conflict with covert emotional incest, you may as well walk away because it's an immediate gravitational pull to the child, whether it be legitimate or not. You see, men don't reward bad behavior of children. I've never rewarded the bad behavior of my children. I've always disciplined it for their benefit. But what you'll find is when it comes to these single mothers, for some strange reason, they'll just ignore or even go as far as rewarding horrible, unacceptable behavior. And if you're in this environment and you're watching all this unfold, and you're sitting there saying to yourself, this just doesn't even make sense. This is just wrong. Well, it doesn't matter when it comes to a mother and a child. She is in a different mindset, a different dimension. And you're no competition for that. This is the point. You've got to accept that when it comes to a mother and her children, unless she's an absolute exceptional woman, and you've got how do you work that out? Well, what was the circumstances in which your last relationship ended? Because a lot of these women build relationships and just get bored. They decide that they're just bored. And everything goes out the window with it. Again, if a woman gets bored, you could bring her children into the world, but if she gets bored, then you're at the mercy of that as well. So you're basically at the mercy of what a woman decides to do. And you know, for me at the moment, I've been the one that's caused or decided to separate, because the situations, you could see the slow train coming. I didn't want that, but you could see the slow train coming, and you've got to go to yourself, well, no, before this ship sinks, and I'm not going to be a survivor, yous will be, I won't be. See, what you've got to remember is, when you are gone from these relationships, they just go on without you. They go back to the normal family dynamic, and you are just left to work yourself out as well. So is it healthy to be in a relationship with a single mother? Well, it all depends on who she is and how much value you have. And this is one of the sad parts of modern day relationships. There's no morals anymore that can protect you from the mind of a weak woman, because the new value system, or the sinful value system, collapses under weak-willed minds. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. I hope this helps you. I'm going to continue on this subject in another talk. Bye for now.